we die, we die. If we die, we die.
Welcome, Husker fans. Thank you for tuning in to Big Red Radio, the Husker Talk Show. My name is Caleb Generette, as always, and next to me is my co-host, Zach Generette. Zach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I think I told you this. I think for once, I don't know if in the time of me being actually entirely invested in Nebraska football that I could ever say it was fun and enjoyable to be a Husker fan. Because you think about it, I probably didn't really start getting invested fully until I was 14, 15.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at like the 2016, 2017 season there. And I mean, from pretty much there until now, or I guess now it is, but from there until like last year,
Right.
it has not been fun. But like, I mean, for once, like I expect to win, right? Like when was
Yeah,
the last time I actually expected to win? I don't know.
right. It's a new feeling for sure.
Yeah.
But
And
today,
so
speaking of the new success, we're going to be ranking our Big Ten coaches, seeing where Matt Rule falls on that list for both of us, as well as some other coaches surrounding. But first, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, hit the bell. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, all linked in the description for all the extra content. Some news before we get into our rankings. Sean Singleton is out this week and probably out for a couple more weeks. Matt Rule came out today and said that in his press conference. Billy Kemp could play in this game, but most likely playing next week for sure. And then Norelli is also making progress on his way back from injury. So that's good that the people that are expected to return can return. And also Marquez Buford will be playing this week after not playing all year. So that's really exciting coming as he started on the defense pretty much not every game he could. He started on the defense and was really good last year. Obviously had the injury that held him out the rest of the last season and then all the beginning of this season. He's not going to start, Matt Rule said, as he's just coming in. They're going to roll with the guys they have with Phelan Sanford and Malcolm Hartzog's been playing some safety as well. So excited to see what Buford can bring to the table once he gets acclimated and fully healthy, because if we can move him to safety and then move Malcolm Hartzog back to corner, I think the defense is a lot better looking that way, and it's already looking great. So excited to see what can happen. You got anything before we start getting to our rankings?
I don't.
Okay, so let's start at the bottom. We'll each say our person, and then we'll talk about it if it needs to be talked about. So my number 14 coach in the Big Ten is actually Nebraska's opponent this week, Harlan Barnett from Michigan State. I just don't think he's fit to be a head coach. He's the interim. Obviously not doing great. I think they're on a 6-game losing streak or 5, something like that. They're on a losing streak, but they're just not looking good. And the team just looks totally bought out and not prepared each week. So Harlan Barnett is my 14.
Yeah. For me at 14, sorry, pulling it up. I am gonna go Tom Allen at Indiana. I mean, as far as like success goes, he's really got nothing to show.
Well, okay, we'll talk
never
about
really
him a little more because I have him, but
I don't think he's a very motivating coach in the locker room, as I've stated in previous videos. I think he's kind of a goofball. He's kind of like PJ Fleck if PJ Fleck didn't win very many football games.
yeah,
Not very motivating, doesn't have a lot of success, kind of goofy, not a guy you want to throw up there in on the media press conference days with a whole lot of expectation for what he's going to say.
right. So my number we'll talk about Tom Allen because I have him a little bit higher. My number 13 is Ryan Walters of Purdue. He's a brand new coach, super young. The thing that gets me, and I know it's not going to happen right away for everybody, but he's a defensive minded coach, and their defense is horrible. Purdue defense has been near the bottom of the Big Ten all year. I know he doesn't really have the personnel that he wants. He's got some players though. When we saw it last week, he's got some pretty talented players, but Purdue looks really bad this year, and Ryan Walters definitely isn't helping him out. So Ryan Walters, not much to say, just comes in at 13. He's still young. He could definitely still turn it around um, in the upcoming years, but as of right now, I have him 13.
Yeah, my 13 is actually Caleb's 14, is Harlan Barnett. Like Caleb said, I mean, I don't think it's fair
Right.
what he got thrown into. He wasn't prepared for this. The team wasn't prepared for this. Um, but at the same time, he's not doing a great job. I mean, you look at Mickey Joseph last year, right? Obviously, people kind of expected Scott Frost to get fired. No one expected Mel Tucker to go out in the middle of this year. I mean, that was about as out of the blue as it can come. But he's also 0-6. And so he hasn't won a football game. Probably not going to win one this week either. Michigan State is a team that is fun to see at the top. I hope they can get back to the top. This is not the answer. And so that's why he's my number 13.
Yeah. My number 12 is Northwestern coach David Braun. I think out of all the interims in all, I guess there's only two interims, but he's definitely the better of the two. We saw Northwestern coming into this year being one of the worst teams in Power Five, and he's won games. I think what they're 4-4 or something 3-5 maybe. I think, but they're respectable record. They're putting up points. They're competing. They beat Maryland last week. Um, so he's doing a good job with what he has, but still you can't really put him that high because he hasn't really done anything. And then also like they still don't look amazing statistically at least. So they've won some games, but yeah, David Braun been I think better than what you could have expected coming into this year for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Are we now, are you doing these rankings off of this year or off of their entire tenure at the school?
Both. So like this year definitely goes into it, but I'm
Okay.
doing it off
So
of
I did mine more off of like, I did mine like 90% off of like this year.
okay. Okay.
Okay. Okay. But
I'm
that's
interested to
for
see.
future.
Okay, that's
That's
a
that's
future.
for future. That's not for right
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Right now I'm gonna go Ryan Walters at
Okay.
number 12. Purdue in the past has been a very good football team. Um, just not this year, And like you said, they don't have the weapons that they've had in the past. But this year, I mean, just you don't have like anywhere where you can look at the team and go, this is where I trust. So like Nebraska and Iowa are good examples. We can trust in our defense. Rutgers, Maryland, they can trust in their offense. Get up to the top, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, they can trust pretty much everywhere. Minnesota can usually trust in their rush offense pretty well. But when you look at Purdue this year, you don't really have a spot on that team where you can trust. And so
Mhm.
that's somewhere as a coach that you got to figure out and develop a place in the team where you can trust. And he's obviously failed pretty bad this year at that.
Yeah. Yeah. So my number, what would this be? 11 is someone Zach has already mentioned, Tom Allen. I mean, he hasn't been great at all. He definitely probably has the hottest seat if you don't count the interims in the Big Ten. Um, but what's propelling him over those guys for me is he did have one successful year with I think Michael Penix's last year at Indiana. They beat Penn State. They won like 9 games, I think. So he does have that working for him. But since then, it's just been dreadful. It's been so horrible. So I would not be surprised if he's not the coach at Indiana next year.
Yeah. Next up for me is someone that Kale's already mentioned. It's David Braun for Northwestern. The reason I have him at this would be 11. Yes.
Yep.
The reason I have him at 11 and not lower is because of one, this is another one where he wasn't really prepared to take on this job. This wasn't, his job up until he was kind of thrown into the fire, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Uh, and sure, he's lost some, tough ones through this year, but you also got to look and see he had a fourth quarter and an overtime win against a fourth quarter comeback and an overtime win against Minnesota. That's huge. And they just had a win against Maryland. That's huge. And so if you look at those staple games, that's big. He also kept it close against a Nebraska team that probably should have beat him a lot more. And so with very low expectation, he's what is Northwestern's record? Are they a four win team right
I
now?
think so. Yeah.
And so, I mean, bowl is not out of the question, right? I
Not
mean,
at
you
all.
could fight for a bowl. You could fight
I
for a
don't know
bowl
the
game. So
remaining schedule. Right. So
looks like they have Iowa this week, which I mean, winnable game,
who
very
knows?
winnable
Yeah.
game. From someone who lives in Iowa, Iowa fans are still mad about the whole fair catch ordeal. So mad. I think it's hilarious. But then they play Wisconsin, another winnable game. They play Purdue and Illinois, right? And so even if you drop Iowa and Wisconsin, you can still win Purdue and Illinois and
Yeah.
become bowl eligible there, or you can pick up an upset and then it's a little safer.
Right. Yeah. 100%. So it'd be crazy if he went to a bowl game this year. My next coach, I think this is going to be, I don't want to say controversial, but he's having a decent year this year. So it's going to be controversial that he's so low. Greg Schiano for Rutgers. He's done nothing at Rutgers besides this year. And this year even, like,
Yeah, but I mean,
they were
Rutgers
losing to
is
Michigan State. They were losing to Michigan State, came back and won. But other than that, like, talk about playing nobody. Like, who has Rutgers played? That makes you say, "Oh yeah, good coaching job by them." Like what?
I
They
mean,
kept it close
they're a
with
six-win
Michigan
team.
for a second.
Hey, and hey, we know what happened in that Michigan
Right.
game.
I'm not saying that, but look, like, wait, where's it at?
They lost to Wisconsin,
Okay, they
but
beat
Wisconsin's a good
Northwestern,
team.
beat Temple, beat a bad Virginia Tech team, got killed by Michigan, beat Wagner, lost to Wisconsin, barely beat Michigan State, beat a bad Indiana team. Like they haven't if Nebraska has this schedule, they have maybe one loss.
I
No, they
understand
definitely
that.
have one loss. They definitely have one loss with Michigan. Maybe two losses.
And I mean, yes, Rutgers could very easily lose out.
Right. Like they
I
have
mean,
Ohio State,
Ohio
Iowa,
State
Penn State, Maryland.
could, right? They could.
Right.
But when was the last time Rutgers is 6-2?
Right. No, but I mean, I think it's understandable with the remaining coaches left. Like, who are you putting Greg Schiano over? I mean, obviously, the way you reacted. You have him over somebody, but I just
I
think
do. I do.
I don't know.
Actually, I'm over
I
a
just have
couple
him
guys.
here. I hope you. I hope you don't have him that high. But I mean,
I
I'm excited to
don't.
see.
I don't.
I'm excited to see who you have next.
But you also got to realize I'm doing this 90% off of this year.
That's true. That's true. You did say
Okay.
that.
So we're coming in at number 10. This is going to come in a little controversial. My number 10 is Kirk Ferentz.
Okay,
And
how are you doing it 90% off this year when they're tied for the lead in the Big Ten West?
Because
And
Kirk
they've lost
Ferentz is
what,
not
two
the
games?
because Kirk Ferentz is not the reason they're tied for the Big Ten West. Because Kirk Ferentz instilled that offense and gave it to his son. Did his son make the best
Well,
play calls
technically
with
he
it?
didn't. Technically he didn't. Technically the AD instilled that offense in Brian Ferentz.
No,
No, Kirk.
no.
No, Kirk can't. Kirk didn't hire his son. The AD hired his son. That's true. That's 100% true. Because of negligence laws.
No, I'm Caleb. That's not negligence. Negligence is saying
Not
Kirk can't be
not
Brian
negligence.
Ferentz. They're not uh
It's
whatever it is.
yeah, the family thing.
But that's saying that Kirk can't be his boss. Not that Kirk can't give him an offensive scheme.
Oh,
That
well,
is
yeah,
Kirk Ferentz's offense. That is Kirk Ferentz's offense. He ran it before Brian Ferentz was the offensive
Brian
coordinator.
Ferentz just made it worse.
Uh, exactly. But I'll tell you why.
Yeah, I just don't know how you can
Iowa is 6-2. It's
comfortably say
because
that when Iowa is probably the favorite to still win the Big Ten West.
it's because of their defense. If we're ranking defensive coordinators, Iowa would be at the top, but we're not. Kirk Ferentz cannot recruit. All right. He's stuck in his ways
Okay.
with this 1970s offense. Dude, even the Iowa fans want Kirk out.
Yeah.
They want him gone.
No,
He can't do anything.
I agree with some of your things. I just
He
have him
can't
higher.
recruit. He's stuck in his ways. He has no offense. He is literally the definition of average, but the reason his team is average every year is not even because of him. It's because of his defensive coordinator that's been there the whole time.
Right, but you don't think he also has something to say about the defensive scheme?
No, no,
You don't think so?
no, because before Brian Ferentz was there, Kirk ran the offense.
Let's see. At Maine, well, he was the head coach at Maine, I guess. He was the offensive line.
Yeah, he
Okay,
ran the
so
offense.
yeah, he's an offensive.
And Iowa has always been
Oh wait,
bad at
yeah,
offense.
you're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. But you also
It's the
He's almost won
defensive coordinator.
he's almost won 200 games as Iowa's head coach.
He's been coaching there since the 90s.
right, but still, like he's the winningest. He's the winningest coach in the Big Ten.
I bet
Overall,
if Greg
he has
Schiano
won
had been
200
coaching since the 90s, he'd be up at close to 200 as well.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's been coaching since the 90s. I hope so. I mean, if you play 15 games a year and you're coaching for almost what, probably 30 years coming up on it, you should, I mean, 200 wins is not, I mean, that's not crazy. It's good, but that's not crazy by any means. And if we're just going off of this year, Kirk has done a terrible job. He's lost many, many, many top recruits. He has let his son continue and continually fail this team. He has put players in the wrong positions multiple times. They have a 5-star receiver from Ohio State that has, I mean, if you look at like stats wise, he's like wide receiver 3. That's terrible.
Yeah.
He's the best player on the team.
Well,
Skill wise, he's
Well,
probably, I mean, Cooper
they have
DeJean.
they have a
maybe,
first round pick on their team. So,
maybe, but like, okay, he's definitely the best player on that offense right now.
that's fair.
Definitely the best player on that offense. And I mean, that's just terrible coaching. That's coaching right there.
It's not great.
That's
It's not
coaching.
great. He's not a lot higher.
You also have a hurt. You also have a
No,
hurt Caden McNamara, and you play Western Michigan, and you don't bench him. You don't
Right.
hold him out against games like Western Michigan.
Yeah.
Come on. I
Yeah.
mean, that's bad coaching. That is
Sure.
bad coaching. And
Sure. He's not much higher on my list, but he's higher. But I'm also taking into account like everything. Like I think you have to. My next coach is Mike Loxley from Maryland. He's done a good job this year, but also we've kind of seen the wheels fall off these last few games. Obviously, he lost to Ohio State. That's not a bad loss. They kept it close for a while. It's Ohio State. But then losing to Illinois, then losing to Northwestern, not a good look. And Maryland, I don't know what you expect out of them, but they've got some players over there. But just overall hasn't done a lot. looked like he was going in the right direction. Still could be definitely going in the right direction. Still definitely could make a bowl game, but just not as good as we thought going into it. I think maybe when they were like 5-0, he might have made the top 5 in this list. But now that we realize that it wasn't really a true 5-0, like wasn't a tough earned 5-0 team, it's kind of brought him back to reality a little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly where I have there as well. Same for me. If you asked me 3 weeks ago who or where I rank Mike Loxley, I mean, he's probably number 4, honestly,
Yeah.
um, up there. But now, I mean, you just can't lose games like that. I mean,
Mhm.
that's why I love Matt Rule so much, is because outside of the Minnesota game, we haven't really had a game where it's like, okay, we need to, we have this game won, we need to win this game and put it away, that we come back and lost. I mean, in the past for Nebraska, it seemed like we never really had a game put away. But now when we have a game put away, I feel very confident that we had won that game.
Yeah. My next one. These next 3 were really tough for me to rank. So these could all be flip flopped, and I would not think anything of it. But my next one is PJ Fleck. So PJ Fleck, I think PJ Fleck's a good coach, but I think he's reached his ceiling, and I don't like comparing him to Matt Rule. What Matt Rule is doing this year is what PJ Fleck does every year, and we're expecting Matt Rule to get better. So, and PJ Fleck is doing it with I don't know if they're technically less talented, but there's definitely more um, co- cohesiveness in that Minnesota team.
Oh, for sure.
So, yeah, PJ
Just more
Fleck,
time. I mean, he just knows more. I mean, that's
right,
his culture there.
right. I just think PJ Fleck is doing, besides like the Northwestern loss, he's pretty much doing exactly what people expect him to do, which I think what happens every year. Like PJ Fleck goes out there, beats the teams he should, loses to the teams that he should. That's pretty much it. Like he's built a good culture. He's an okay coach. Maybe in a different situation he would be a lot better, but just at Minnesota he's reached his peak, and I just don't think his peak is that high.
Yeah. What is this number?
We just did
This would be
10.
number
So this
7,
is
correct?
no, 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 no. This is 9. No, this is 14, 13, 12, 11, 10.
8.
This is 8. This is 8.
Number 8. Um, Number 8 for me is Brett Belima. Uh, has not impressed me one bit. He had a really good year last year. I liked the team he had last year. I think Illinois had a pretty decent year during COVID. Really, actually, a good year during COVID. But that was such a
Yeah,
weird time with players sitting out, and you got to take every team there and just kind of throw them out the window what they did during COVID. Um, but Brett Belima is another guy that I feel like Brett Belima gets out coached
yeah,
quite like consistent. Like I feel like Matt Rule, like I feel like Illinois, if you look at skill wise, is like neck and neck with Nebraska.
yeah,
Like I feel like matchup wise, like if you look at just position to position skill, I feel like they're neck and neck. Maybe even they have a slight edge. Maybe we have a slight edge in a couple places, but I just feel like he got out coached by Matt Rule. I feel like he's got out coached by a lot of guys. I feel like he got out coached by the Kansas coach,
Leipold.
whatever his
It's
name is.
Leipold.
Yeah, Lance Leipold. Like I feel like that's a winnable game for Illinois, but I feel like he just got out coached.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, if you want to be successful as a coach, you can't get out coached. And so that's why he comes at number 8 for me. He hasn't done terrible. He's had success at Illinois. Illinois is always a team that can win. But this year, especially, they have not been very great.
Yeah. So that's who my next one is Brett Bielema. Um, pretty much everything you said. He had a really good year last year, taking into account his Wisconsin days as well. I mean, I think he's a good football coach. I think he's kind of similar to Ferentz in the way that he just needs to adapt, and he just hasn't yet. But I do think he's trying to. I don't think he has the most talented team by any means over there at Illinois right now. So I like Brett Bielema. I think he's a good coach. But if I look at Illinois and say, are they going to compete in the new Big Ten? Like, do they have a chance to compete in the new Big Ten? It doesn't really look like it. So Brett Bielema is my number 7 coach.
Yeah. My number 7 is Greg Schiano. Finally comes out. I mean, the reason he's so high for me is because I feel like 3 years ago, Rutgers is not 6-2.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like 3 years ago, Rutgers is 4-4 with an easy
Right.
schedule like this. You know what I mean? And I feel like Rutgers could lose out, yes, but I feel like Rutgers could definitely beat Iowa.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I feel like Rutgers could definitely beat Maryland. I mean, Rutgers could be an 8-4 team this year.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, Rutgers is in a bowl, and they still have 4 games left on the table. To me, at a school like that has been historically bad, I mean, that's saying something, because you have zero culture there.
Yeah.
None. At least when Matt Rule came into Nebraska, you have like donors and fans and culture and people that want you to succeed. Greg Schiano goes to Rutgers, he's got nothing. It's bare bones. And you're playing in the Big Ten East. Congrats. And you
Right.
have to go out there and win. And so that's why he is as high as he is for me, because I feel like what he's done is, I mean, obviously he hasn't been great. He's not out there winning Big Ten titles, he's not even competing for him. But at Rutgers, if I was a Rutgers fan, I would really like what Greg Schiano has done.
Yeah, for sure. My next one is Kirk Ferentz. So Zach pretty much said everything you needed to know about him. I just think taking into account what he's done at Iowa, he's been to Big Ten championship games. He's at one point was the number 2 team in the country, which as fraudulent as that may seem, they were still the number 2 team in the country.
No, but you also have to look at the fact that they played like a number.
Okay, this is not what we're
6
arguing.
in the
This is not what
country,
we're
Iowa
arguing.
State.
This is not what we're talking about. I'm saying Kirk Ferentz has perennially won 9-10 games every single year. No matter how he does it and it works. Okay.
The thing is, he's not doing it though.
Sure.
He's not.
He's the head
game.
coach. He's the head coach. And it's not like I'm not coming out here saying he's top 5. He's at 6. So, but Kirk Ferentz, I think, has done enough to prove that he is still a good football coach, and a lot of programs, not only in the Big Ten but in the country, would take Kirk Ferentz as their coach. Maybe it's a little less because of his age now, but I think a lot of teams would like it if Kirk Ferentz was their head coach, because he builds a good foundation, he knows how to win, and he's done it for a long time now.
Okay. I think he's delusional, but
he's not delusional. Listen, would you be surprised if at the end of the year Iowa won the Big Ten West?
Yes.
Big Ten West?
Yes. I would. Because I feel like that Iowa, just looking at their fans, all right. I'm telling you right now, I'm seeing it firsthand. This Iowa fan base is crumbling. They're still mad about the fair catch call. Then you fire, and then they're like, well, Brian Ferentz isn't coming back next year. And they're like, why aren't you this year? Kirk is mad that the AD, he publicly is mad that the AD fired his son in the middle of the year. Publicly came out and does not agree with that. This Iowa team is crumbling, okay, on the inside. I mean, Cooper DeJean was about to cry when he was talking about his fair catch call.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would be very surprised I would be very surprised. I'm picking Rutgers over him for sure. I would not be surprised if Northwestern comes out and pulls an upset in Kinnick.
Okay.
So what are we at now? Number
5.
We're at number 5.
Wait, no. We're
Yeah.
no,
Number
number
5.
6. My number 6. I still have my number 6.
okay.
Yeah.
I
Wait,
know
no,
my
because
number
you.
6.
Oh yeah, because that was Kirk Ferentz. All right. So what's your? All right. So hold on. Let's start it. Let's start it. Okay. So what's your number 6 coach?
My number 6 is PJ Fleck. Listen, I hate PJ Fleck. All right. I hate PJ Fleck. I think he's cocky. I think the stuff that came out about him in the offseason is bad. I don't think uh, I think Matt Rule outcoached him in the beginning of the year, but at the same time, if you're looking at this year, Minnesota has pretty much won every game they've needed to. The Nebraska one's big, right? So they came back and they won a game there that they probably shouldn't have. Obviously beat Eastern Michigan, lost to a really good North Carolina team. The Northwestern game is not a pretty one.
Mm-hmm.
You can throw that one out. The Michigan game, but the Minnesota game or the Iowa game, I'm pretty sure PJ Fleck told the refs to look for a fair catch. And that is elite level coaching, if it's true.
If
It
it's
may or may
true.
not
I
be
mean,
true.
you can't.
But you look at, don't count Minnesota out for winning the West either.
Oh, definitely.
Look
not,
at the
no.
remaining schedule. Look at the remaining schedule. They have Illinois. That's a win. Purdue, probably a win. They'll take an L to Ohio State. And it just comes down to Wisconsin and Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Nebraska all playing on the same weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, if Wisconsin or if Iowa does go, say, slip up against Northwestern or Rutgers, Nebraska wins out to there, and then Iowa wins, and then Minnesota beats Wisconsin, Wisconsin has slip up. Next thing you know, Minnesota's playing for a Big Ten title. PJ Fleck has put out great Minnesota teams in the past.
I don't know about great.
Great.
What do you define as great?
They weren't they in the Big Ten title game
I think they
a few
were.
years ago?
I think they were at least once.
Yeah.
But that's once.
Right.
Like, would you say the year that
Here's the thing. Minnesota is
like
a
who was in the
lot
Big
like
Ten?
Iowa.
Was Iowa in the Big Ten championship game last year? No, it was.
No, the last time they played it was against Michigan. Would have been 3
So who
years
won the
ago.
West last year?
The West was Wisconsin last
Was
year.
it Wisconsin? I don't know if it was Wisconsin because they fired Jim Leonard.
Let me see. Big Ten Championship 2023 or 2020.
Oh, it was Purdue. It was Purdue.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Doing the Big Ten Championship.
Yeah, that's crazy. But don't get me wrong. I feel like if you look at records, Minnesota's a lot like Iowa has been. Very, very similar. But the thing about PJ Fleck is PJ Fleck makes changes where they need to be. Who was the running back they had a few years ago? Very, very good.
Mo Ibrahim.
Running. Mo Ibrahim. Okay. When
He was
Mo
there last
Ibrahim was there. Right. When Mo Ibrahim was there last year, it was a predominantly rush offense.
Yeah.
The thing is, Minnesota doesn't have that at the running back anymore. But they have receivers that can play now, and they have a quarterback that can throw. And so they change the offense. They start throwing the ball. PJ Fleck plays with his playmakers. He has it on defense, too. He puts people in the right position to succeed. Minnesota has never had the best roster in the Big Ten, but they're always competing in games because PJ Fleck puts the right people in the right places. The reason he's so much higher than Kirk Ferentz is because Kirk Ferentz legitimately does sometimes have one of the best rosters but yet time and time again fails to utilize it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. I just think I take into account more, and you said it. I mean, you're just taking into account this year mostly. I'm taking into account everything. So
But
I
I
think
agree. I
hearing,
agree. PJ
but
Fleck has hit the ceiling, but I mean that's a testament to the coach right there. I mean, you hit your ceiling, and I don't think it's his ceiling. I think it's Minnesota's ceiling.
sure, sure. I also think, like I said, Fleck, Bielema, and Ferentz could be flipped any way, and I wouldn't be upset about
But
it.
Fleck, PJ Fleck can recruit. That's the thing.
But
Kirk
if he could
Ferentz,
recruit, like what, like you kind of just opposed
I'm not saying
yourself.
he can recruit. He cannot recruit great, but the reason Kirk Ferentz is so low on my list is because I feel like he's so stuck in his ways. He doesn't utilize the transfer portal like he should. He doesn't recruit like he should. He's stuck on this offense that he's ran since the 90s, since he came in. He was keeping his son. I mean, and you can say, oh, he can't keep his
Right.
son in there. No, he's got a little bit of say behind closed
Oh, he's
doors.
got a lot
He
to
was
say.
keeping,
He's got a lot to say for sure.
yeah, he was keeping his son in there, knowing his offense was terrible. You have a hurt Cade McNamara is what they needed to save that offense. Knowing he was hurt preseason, they didn't rest him in the games they could have and still won. And Kirk Ferentz would come out and say, I don't care if I'm winning by 100 or winning by one. All I want to do is win. Okay, then rest your guys that are going to win games later on for you. And now your guys are out for the season and you're with Deacon Hill, who's honestly a terrible quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. Not great at all for sure. No, I'm with you. And I think there's definitely tiers. I think there's the bottom tier of Barnett, Walters, Braun, Allen. That's probably the bottom tier. And then there's a middle tier. There's a like second to bottom tier. At least for me, I guess that middle tier is probably Shiano, Loxley, Fleck, Bielema, Ferentz. And then we have the same top five. I don't know what order you have them in, but I think there's two tiers in there too, with the top three, and then the two probably that we're going to talk about. I don't know what you have your list as, but my number 5 is our coach Matt Rule. I don't have him over Luke Fickell. I guess that's telling. Luke Fickell is my number 4, just because like you can't take away from the fact that Luke Fickell is one of the few coaches that has made the college football playoff, and he did it with Cincinnati. It's like Luke Fickell is a really good coach. Matt Rule, really good coach. They're close for me, for sure. But I just think as of right now, I'm still giving Luke Fickell that edge. But Matt Rule, what he's done at Nebraska, what he's done at Baylor, what he's done at Temple has been nothing short of amazing. I mean, he's turned programs around. He's obviously well on his way to turning Nebraska around as well. So I'm excited to see where it can go. And he's a top 5 coach for me in the Big Ten right now, coming in at number 5.
Yeah, so I think this is where it really affects that I'm not going off of previous years, I'm going off of this year, because the reason I'm doing that is we have guys like Luke Fickell in here, and if we're just straight up ranking Big Ten coaches, sure, Luke Fickell succeeded in another conference with another play style with different types of athletes. Then he comes to Wisconsin, right? And he hasn't, and sure, he hasn't
They
been
have the
dealt the
same
greatest
record.
roster.
They have. Sorry,
I
finish your
understand
point.
that.
Sorry, finish your point.
I understand that, but he has lost to Washington State, which like
Washington
might be a
State's
good
good.
team,
Washington State's good.
but Washington State also got ran by Arizona.
Arizona's a good team. Arizona just beat
Yeah.
Oregon State.
But then like he beat Illinois by 4. He only scored 6 points and lost to Iowa. And those aren't crazy things, but like you also look at the good side, right? He only lost by 14 to Ohio State. He, beat Purdue by a lot. They beat Georgia Southern. I know coaches that couldn't do that. They beat Rutgers, and we're putting Rutgers up here as a decent-ish team. But at the same time, I think he's a good coach, but I think if you just look at like Matt Rule this year, what he's done to Luke Fickle this year, what he's done, I think what Matt Rule has done is more impressive because I think Luke Fickle has a much better roster. I mean, you have Braylon Allen.
Sure. Sure.
You have quite possibly the best back in the country. Probably not. Blake Corum's probably and the Notre Dame running backs up there, but you have a top
Yeah.
five back in the country.
But you also got to look like they have a better win than
And
Nebraska does right now. Like none of Nebraska's
and
wins are better than Rutgers. Like, is any of the teams that Nebraska's beat a better team than Rutgers? Like, is Northwestern a better team than Rutgers? Is Illinois a
No.
better team than Rutgers? Purdue? Like
No.
at worst they're the same. At worst it's the same.
Yeah, sure. But I also like to look at preseason recruiting this year, right? What Matt Rule did in recruiting is incredible. Pulling Malachi Coleman back is so big, right? Getting Danny Kalen to decommit from Missouri and come to us is big. Getting Carter Nelson is huge. Wisconsin, for a really long time, didn't have an O line commit. And that's who Wisconsin is. Wisconsin always has a great O
Yeah.
line. And as a head coach of Wisconsin, to not have an O line commitment, I mean, that's terrible. It really is. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
just
not
think
who Wisconsin is. I understand changing the offense, but I mean, you got to stick to it. You got to have O line commitments. But he's still number 5, obviously, because he's done a great job, and I think he will. But I think Matt Rule has a higher ceiling.
okay, I could get with that. I could agree with
I
that.
think Matt Rule has a higher ceiling. I don't think, and I think it's mostly because Luke Fickle wants to run the air raid at Wisconsin. And I think switching from a ground and pound offense to an air raid like that, it takes an immense amount of time
Yeah.
because Matt Rule came in and switched from the spread to like a power spread.
Right.
Like we have a changed offensive scheme, but very minimal.
Yeah.
He did a complete flip. And so, and he's not, and go back to what I was talking about, PJ Fleck, utilizing the players you have. He's not utilizing Braylon Allen to the top that he could.
Right. No, I agree.
Whereas like Matt Rule finds guys like, Tommy Hill and Anthony Grant, Thomas Fedoni, Malachi Coleman, Heinrich Harburg, and he pushes them to their absolute ceiling. And I feel like that's why we are 5-3 and looking for a bowl and not 3-5 and saying it's just another Nebraska team, because we easily could be 3-5 right now.
Right.
We easily could be.
Yeah. I
We
agree.
easily could be a 1-loss team. We easily could be a 6-loss team.
Yeah. For sure.
But we're not, because I feel like he exceeds, every player to what they can be.
Yeah. So my number 4 is Luke Fickle. We've already talked about it. I'm guessing your 4 is your 4. Who's your 4?
My 4 is Matt Rule.
Okay. So we just had Matt Rule and Luke Fickle flipped. And I'm pretty sure, I think we should probably have the top 3 the same. I have James Franklin as my 3. Is that who you have? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I just think what James Franklin's does is he wins 10 games every year. And if you win 10 games every year.
The reason. Yeah. So I agree, right? But the reason he's not 1 or 2 is because James Franklin cannot win the big game.
Yeah.
He can't. He's proven that time and time again. He can't win the big games. They're always going to be a top 15 team. They have great players. They'll always have great players. James Franklin is a really good coach, but he's a lot like Kirk in the sense of like record wise, and a lot like PJ Fleck in the sense of record wise, right? They're consistent. They're always going to win 9 or 10 games. But the difference is PJ Fleck and Kirk Ferentz once or twice a year will always lose a game that they shouldn't lose. Always. James Franklin never does that. James Franklin never gets upset.
He lost to Indiana.
Okay, very rarely. And every coach is very rarely going to get upset.
Sure.
But I mean, year in and year out, Iowa and Minnesota get upset if they're on a run. I mean, look at when Iowa was number 2 in the country. They got upset by Purdue. They got whooped, right? You look at this year, Iowa was on a roll. They got beat by Minnesota. I mean, year in and year out, Iowa loses the big game. Last year, all they had to do was beat at the time, 3-8 Nebraska team to make the Big Ten title game, and they lost.
Yeah.
James Franklin doesn't do that. When James Franklin is supposed to win, he wins. But he's never going to come out here and beat Ohio State or Michigan as long as these next 2 coaches are there and as long as their rosters stay the same.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I'm guessing our next 2 are the same. My number 2 is Ryan Day, and my number 1 is Jim Harbaugh. I think
And
as coaches, I think as coaches, I think they're pretty even, honestly. But Jim Harbaugh has just beat Ryan Day.
Yeah, I mean,
Ryan Day can't literally what it is for me.
But there's a reason.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, hang on. This is video evidence. Ohio State makes a call at the line, an audible call. What does every Michigan player on the sideline do?
I've seen the video.
They point to the sky.
I think that's more of a common thing than people think. I think like you can catch on tendencies, you can catch on like formations. Like
it was immediately after they made the sign.
Sure. They're obviously stealing signs. I think everybody steals signs.
On the Central Michigan sideline dressed up as a Central Michigan coach.
That's bad. That's what I was about to say is everybody steals signs. Stealing signs is not illegal. What's illegal is taking it as far as Michigan has, filming the other team's sidelines, going on another team's sidelines, finding signs, stuff like that. That's not good.
I don't know if you've seen this or not yet. I'm sure you have. Put your tinfoil hats on for this little conspiracy theory here. South Carolina last year.
I've seen it.
Wins back-to-back games against top 10 opponents, one of which is Tennessee. And when I thought Tennessee could possibly be the best team in the nation. I mean, after Tennessee beat Alabama and Tennessee was on a roll, I for sure thought it was possible for Tennessee to win a national title. I don't know if you did, but I definitely did. South Carolina beats Tennessee and beats them bad.
Yeah.
I mean, they put up like 60 some points. Okay. Upset. You see it happen all the time, right? Upsets happen all the time. What doesn't happen is a just above 500 South Carolina team doing it in back-to-back weeks. I forget the exact coaching connection, but there is a connection. What is the Michigan guy's name? I'm blanking on his name.
Connor Stallions.
Yeah, there's a connection between Connor Stallions and the South Carolina coach, Beamer.
I think there's a connection between the South Carolina DC. I think the DC
South
Carolina was like an assistant for Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Is it possible that Connor Stallions gave signs to South Carolina so that Michigan could have what they thought was an inferior opponent in TCU?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a fun theory.
TCU actually, I'm pretty sure, has came out and said they changed all their signs before the playoff, and then Michigan gets exposed.
Yeah.
Also, a guy brought this up to me today. It's kind of weird that, Michigan was 8-4, 9-3 team pretty consistently.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were a pretty consistently above average team, and then boom, national contenders year in and year out.
Yeah, I mean, you could point to Jim Harbaugh for that though. Like, Jim Harbaugh is a proven really good coach.
Yes, but they were like that with him for a pretty decent amount of time.
Yeah. No,
And
definitely.
I think the more you dig into this, the worse it gets.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I think the more you dig, the more you're going to find.
Yeah. No,
And
it's wild. It's
I
wild.
think
And
there's two things that can happen with this. One is they blame it 1000% on Connor Stallions, which I think is entirely false. There's no way he's buying all these tickets, going to all these games on his own dime, and no one else knows about it.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And inside telling players, and there's no way. So you can either blame it, they're either going to find a way to blame it all on Connor Stallions or Jim Harbaugh that jumps ship and goes to the NFL, and which I think is the more accurate um, way to look at this because nothing will happen this year. I like that the college football playoff is not even looking at it when they come out with the rankings because it's all. I mean, it's all alleged still. We obviously,
Right.
know that most likely what's going to happen, but it is all alleged, and so you can't pull them out of the rankings because of this. But back to the Big Ten rankings. Yeah, the reason I have Jim Harbaugh above Ryan Day is just because Ryan Day can't beat him.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all it is. That's all it is for me. Like I think they're pretty I think they're even. Really. It's just head to head that changes
And we
everything.
know Ohio State can beat Michigan because when Urban Meyer was there, that's all he did. All
Yeah.
Urban Meyer did was beat Michigan over and over and over again. And so it can happen.
Right.
But yeah, now I absolutely think Matt Rule has the potential to maybe not become a one or two in the next few years by any means, but I think he absolutely has the potential to close the gap.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you look at I don't know, and this is obviously very biased. This is very very biased, but I think Matt Rule's doing it the right way. And you look at other coaches that may coach other teams, um, outside of the Big Ten, but when Matt Rule has a problem on the team, it's next guy up. But we're going to develop those guys, and we're going to do it the long way because sustained culture is way better than a year of maybe getting 7 wins. I'd rather take 3 years of bad. This is why I've always told everyone in Nebraska. I'd rather take a ton of bad to become elite than just forever be above average.
Yeah.
And that's why, because Matt Rule has a problem with his O line, and he's not just going to go to the transfer portal and get new ones. He's going to develop the guys that he has now. Now, is he going to recruit new ones? Absolutely, because that's what you do in college football.
Right.
But you don't just replace. You don't just rinse and repeat. That's not how you build culture. That's how
Yeah.
you get your son killed, the quarterback.
Okay. Okay. Getting a little too direct.
All right, let's get to our game prediction. We've been going for a while. This is a very, very long video at this point.
Nebraska's favored by 3, total set at 34.5. Just some stats. Michigan State has the worst total offense in the Big Ten. They're second worst in rushing, seventh in passing, but thrown 10 interceptions in 8 games. So they turn the ball over more than one time a game. Second worst in passing defense, ninth in rushing defense. So very comparable defense statistically to Purdue. Obviously, I think we saw that Purdue has a few guys that are legit playmakers on that defense, number 5 and number 4. Michigan State's the most penalized team in the Big Ten, not disciplined. Head coach obviously got fired. I think this is a big time spot for Nebraska. Obviously, they're playing for bowl eligibility. They're still playing for the Big Ten West title. I think they dominate. I think they dominate up front. I don't think they allow anything in the rushing game, and I think they get after the quarterback no matter who it is. They're having an open QB battle over in Michigan State right now, so we don't really know who's going to suit up. But I think Nebraska wins 24-7, covering the spread with the under hitting as well in this one.
Yeah. For me, when I'm looking at this game, it's a game that you cannot overlook Michigan State. Michigan State has had a tough time in these football games, but you also got to look at Michigan State outside of that Michigan game hasn't got blown out by any
Yeah.
means. I mean, Caleb said Iowa could win the West. Michigan State had Iowa beat in mid fourth quarter and then gave it up. But I mean, Michigan State defensively is stout and offensively isn't there, but it's going to come down to turnovers and penalties in my eyes in this game. It's going to come down to who's the more disciplined team. Against Purdue, we came out and we gave the ball up 4 times and we scored 31 points. That's not going to happen here. You're going to East Lansing. It's going to be really, really cold. It might possibly be snowing up there. And you're going to have to run the football and you're going to have to hold on to the football and you have to be disciplined, because if you can take the football away and Michigan is undisciplined, you'll come out and win this game, which is exactly what I think is going to happen. And I think Matt Rule knows that we got to hold on to the football and be disciplined, because neither team is going to chuck the ball around the field. I mean, it's going to be runs on runs, and each rush defense is, fairly solid. Obviously, Nebraska's is much better, but both decent rush defenses. And I'm going to go 24-10. So a little bit higher scoring than Caleb had it. So the spread, I feel like, hits here. And then what was the over-under line?
34.5. So you're right. You're right under it.
Yeah, right at it. So I think that's a good line. I think that's a good line there for sure.
Yeah. They're definitely expecting a low scoring affair. But Zach, you got anything else before we wrap this up?
Nope.
All right, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully next time we talk to you, Nebraska is going to a bowl and we're talking about some bowl eligibility things and stuff like that. But make sure you like this video, subscribe, hit the bell so you never miss an episode. Make sure you're following all the socials in the description. But without further ado, go Big Red.
If we die, we die! If we die, we die!